Hello and welcome to Your Health Reclaimed with DrPND, where we help you reclaim your health with tips, tools, and resources to live your most optimal and vibrant life. Here's your host, DrPND.
Hello and welcome to Your Health Reclaimed. I'm your host, DrPND. This is going to be our second podcast in the making, and I'm really excited. And today we are actually going to talk about a very common scenario issue that is very prevalent among women in reproductive age, and that is polycystic ovarian syndrome, or short PCOS. I'm very certain a lot of you guys have heard that expression and those names of this particular ailment. It is very prevalent and very common among women, again, and it is something that unfortunately is either misdiagnosed, sometimes overdiagnosed, and more often than not, has really failed the conventional pattern of treatment. So today I want to talk to you about briefly what it is. I'm not going to go into statistics and any details regarding that, but just want to go over what it is and ultimately what is the driving factor or factors behind that ailment and what can be done to naturally and effectively address that long term. Okay, so we're not going to be going over treatment or any kind of symptom management, but I would like to talk to you and give you practical ways that you'll be able to apply to begin to either prevent that, which is a lot easier, or address the root cause of the problem for long-term success. So PCOS is a common but complex endocrine disorder that obviously affects women of reproductive age. It ties into multiple bodily systems, including the ovaries, adrenal glands, the thyroid in certain instances, the GI, gastrointestinal system, and also the brain. Usually, doctors rely on three main criteria to diagnose PCOS. One of them is infrequent ovulation or inovulation, also known as ovulatory dysfunction. Make sure I said that right. Elevated androgen levels as indicated by blood test, also known as hyperandrogenism. And number three, cysts on ovaries is indicated by transvaginal ultrasound, also known as polycystic ovarian morphology. And usually a woman must fulfill at least two of the three criteria to be considered a successive diagnosis of PCOS. Now, the most common of symptoms of PCOS are going to be irregular or missing periods, abnormal hair growth, especially in the face, male pattern hair loss and baldness, acne, infertility, irregular blood sugar issues, weight gain, or weight loss resistance. Okay, so these are the most common. There's obviously other ones, particularly when it comes to mood and depressive and mood episodes and so forth. Now, women may be present with a complete conventional PCOS symptom picture or with just a few of these, but importantly, we're coming to understand that PCOS occurs on a spectrum and that the three main criteria used to diagnose PCOS may not apply honestly to all women with PCOS-like clinical picture. So with that, I wanted to go over and address the underlying mechanisms that are usually the driving force behind PCOS. So to understand how nutrition can improve PCOS, it helps to first understand some of the underlying causes and mechanisms driving this particular condition. PCOS tends to be characterized by 7 key features: gastrointestinal dysfunction, global chronic inflammation of the body, imbalances of the hormones, often high stress, chronic stress, persistent stress in life, and obviously environmental toxins exposure, which our environment is prevalent with. Another thing is insulin resistance, which is one of the big factors I'm going to talk about today. And also, believe it or not, overtraining. Yes, overtraining as in doing too much physical activity. We're seeing this actually a lot with, a lot of CrossFit athletes. Also, a lot of the female bodybuilders, competitive bodybuilders, you see that. And that is a big problem. Obviously, exercise can be something that is extremely helpful, very beneficial, healthy, long-term. But like anything else, it can be overdone. And in this particular case, we're talking about PCOS. Overtraining can definitely exacerbate symptomology greatly and make the condition worse, okay? So first and foremost, I want to say this, that each one of these mechanisms that I just described can be addressed, at least in part, by successful, custom-tailored, bio-individual respected nutritional intervention. So let's discuss each one of these mechanisms in turn, and then we can dive into discussion of how nutrition, along with other modalities, can help. So insulin resistance, as I mentioned, that is assumed to be probably the most important and the primary driver behind PCOS. So insulin resistance is a condition in which the cells in the muscle, fat, and liver do not respond appropriately and eventually at all to the hormone insulin. Insulin shutters glucose from the blood into the cells, allowing it to be utilized for energy production. So when the cells become not responsive to insulin, glucose lingers in the blood, causing obviously hyperglycemia or high blood sugar, and from there, inflammation and all sorts of myriad of health effects that a lot of you guys know already. So it's estimated that well over 60% of women with PCOS present have some kind of varying degree of insulin resistance. It is assumed, and I honestly tend to agree with that insulin resistance is actually a lot higher percentage that, assume 50, 60%. But just assume, even if it's just this 50, 60%, that's a great amount of number for that to happen. So insulin resistance obviously can occur in overweight people, but also includes people that are underweight, lean people, and very normal weight. So the really insulin resistance is no discriminatory based on actually weight. And I mean, when I say weight, I mean body fat, people that are morbidly obese or not. I see that across all boards, young, old, male, female, morbidly obese, slightly overweight, normal weight, underweight, way too lean, including people that are actually very athletic and people that are extremely active and generally healthy. So correcting insulin resistance is absolutely the essential first step for us to be able to address that. So before anything else, insulin resistance has got to be corrected, okay? There's obviously the conventional models uses a lot of insulin sensitizing drugs, they use for type 2 diabetes, especially metformin and such, but that has really not proven useful at all. It might mitigate the symptoms and temporary relief might be seen, but in the long run does not work well at all. So the root cause of the problem has to be addressed without fail, and that is going to be, again, lifestyle and nutrition. So just a quick note, I want to make it very abundantly clear that not all women with PCOS will have insulin resistance, but the great majority of it will to some extent, and most of them, like I said, 50, 60% of them will have a quite substantial have that issue, okay? So just keep that in mind. The next thing I want to talk about is extremely important, and that also has to be addressed, is going to be gastrointestinal dysfunction. Okay, we have a tremendous amount of growing body of evidence and research now that the microbiota, the healthy bugs in the human gut, play extremely important role in PCOS and the influencing key factors of the syndrome, including insulin resistance, hyperandrogenism, which is high androgen levels, and chronic global inflammation. So one thing is the disrupted intestinal flora. When you have dysbiosis, without fail, it will affect the condition and or be part of the causative factor. So the gut dysfunction is going to be huge, and that's something that we really, really have to address without fail. The third thing is what I call global chronic inflammation. Global meaning that your whole body is inflamed. These inflammatory markers in your whole body, your whole body is basically on the chronic state of inflammation. And when you have chronic inflammation, which is a massive part of that is, or if not the whole part of it, is going to be due to our lifestyle and nutrition and the poor foods that we eat, the highly refined processed foods that we consume. But basically, chronic inflammation is going to ultimately impair insulin sensitivity, cause insulin resistance, blood sugar dysregulation. Is going to disrupt the gut microbiome. Is going to impair some way, shape, or form the HPTA axis, which is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, ultimately disrupting hormonal balance. Okay, so anyway, swing it, that is going to happen with chronic inflammation. Obviously damaging many other things, but since we're talking about PCOS here specifically, these things are going to be, at hand with chronic inflammation. When you have also chronic inflammation, again, it's going to lead to hormonal imbalances. And when that happens, a lot of things begin to break down the chain of command. Okay, so I'm not going to go, much into it, but everybody knows a big, aspect of PCOS is, the overproduction of androgens. So those excess androgen called estrogen, and estrogen dominance cause a lot of problems. From water retention, weight gain, mood issues, contributing to other, again, breakage of the chain of command down the road. So balancing the hormones is extremely important in, addressing that. Next is going to be the chronic stress. Really, the chronic stress can be both a trigger of the onset and also a factor that will, without fail, severely exacerbate existing PCOS symptomology. Okay, so we don't have to talk about stress. Everybody knows the stress kills, is deadly. If you look at the statistics, you'll see the emergency room visits from non-traumatic injuries and issues. A lot of them are caused to psychological stress, just stress in general. People think they have a heart attack, they can't breathe, migraines, headaches, you name it. So again, addressing the stress. Chronic stress is addressed aside from the physical aspects like overtraining. It's going to be a psychological aspect to that, right? That is really, addressing, faulty belief patterns, faulty preconceived notions in life. Of course, PTSD from childhood, from current experiences and so forth, financial issues, marital issues, relational issues with families. All those things come together very hard, to play a factor in the stress. So the next one is going to be exposure to environmental toxins. Everybody knows about BPA, bisphenol A. Everybody knows about phthalates and PFOAs and, heavy metals and other toxic elements. It's very prevalent in our environment. From the time we get up in the morning and start, brushing our teeth and washing our face all the way to the time we go to bed, the average American gets exposed to a tremendous amount of chemicals. Then many of them have been proven to be endocrine disruptors. Many of them have been known to cause cancer, suspected of, causing cancer, such as, carcinogenic effects. Many of them have, other toxicity issues that are not even known. But the bottom line is environmental health is very important. And when you have all those chemicals in our system, it really makes a massive difference in the toxic burden and ultimately the stress of our body. So that also has to be addressed. And the last thing we talked about is the overtraining aspect. Now, some people don't have a problem with that. People don't work out, or they work out moderately and they actually do a good job. And to them, that type of training is a positive factor. But younger population, people in their teens and 20s, 30s, 40s, again, especially with very high intensity, high frequency training protocols, whether it be ultra endurance sports like marathon training, CrossFit, it can have a lot of negative effect on overtraining the system. So it's not just they're not under recovering, but they're just going past their lines. And me being in the strength and conditioning field for so many years, and doing personal training and being the fitness world in general, and being a competitive athlete myself, I can firsthand vouch how overtraining can really wreak havoc on the endocrine system by default. Central nervous system, just everything gets affected. And it's not easy. It's not hard at all to overtrain, especially if you have somebody pushing you. A lot of things, that I see is people doing things that they really shouldn't be doing. The question we always ask, or used to ask, is, is not what a person can do physically, is what is it that they can recover properly from. So somebody able to, crush their workout and do, for example, get CrossFit 5 days a week, hour at a time. But if you're not recovering properly, you're causing that systemic stress that, again, is going to start breaking things down the chain of command and really affect the physiology of the body. So, really consider that. I know to a lot of people, exercise is an addiction, and they can justify that as a healthy addiction, granted. But nonetheless, there's no such thing as a healthy addiction. Anything good in of itself can be taken to severity and become a negative. So just keep that in mind. All right, so let's go ahead and go into the interventions and how we can ease and improve the symptoms. So the first and foremost, okay, and you guys are going to hear me talk about this a lot, is when I introduce the staple or the causative factors of any disease that is non-acute and non-trauma, physical trauma based. So when you have a disease, right, you're going to know that by having symptoms. And a symptom is going to be an expression of a dysfunction of the body. A dysfunction is a sign of two things which almost always nowadays are going to be present together. And those two things are going to be nutritional deficiencies and some form of toxicity. So let me go over this again. In a nutshell, any chronic disease, regardless of what it is, that is non-acute, non-traumatic based, okay, is going to be the cause of combination of nutritional deficiencies along with some kind of toxicity. So, for instance, let's talk about migraine. A lot of people suffer with migraines. I cannot tell you how many people, for instance, are deficient in basic mineral composition and basic vitamin requirements of their bodies, such as magnesium and B complexes. And almost always you see an improvement to a degree. That's the deficiency. Another thing is aside from the deficiencies, the toxicity is a lot of people have food sensitivities, not food allergies, but food sensitivities. So a lot of times when I deal with migraines, believe it or not always, but a lot of times it can be a simple fact of literally doing a very comprehensive IgG food testing that looks for the food sensitivities that a person can have, and almost always they do. Then removing those triggering foods that trigger inflammation, and at the same time, optimizing their micronutritional intake, micro meaning like vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, polyphenols, and other stuff. Basically, put them on a very good high density nutrient diet that also is heavily supplemented with high quality supplements. For instance, B complexes and magnesium, and the right form of magnesium done the right way, the right dosing for the person. You have no idea how many times those two little simple things will address the migraines completely and permanently. So without going off on a tangent too much, the key of healing from any chronic disease is addressing the nutritional deficiencies and addressing the toxicities. Okay, so let's go back and relate this to PCOS, what we're talking about today. So the first thing is to address the nutritional deficiencies. And that is always going to be done first and foremost with the absolute foundational staple basis that without it, nothing else is going to change, is going to be proper dietary intervention. What's proper? It all depends on the person. People always ask, do you believe in keto and paleo or carnivore, vegan, and vegetarian, plant-based, whatever? I don't. Every person has by individual need. Genealogy and their ancestry has to be respected. Their lifestyle has to be respected. Their taste has to be respected. Again, you do specialty testing to be able to see what works, what doesn't. I can tell you this, that I've never had experience putting somebody on an extreme diet and having really good success long term. And I've tried them all, believe me. I literally have tried them all. So a proper diet, and that is going to be a very high nutrient dense nutritional protocol that's going to be directed towards that person's individual needs. Ultimately, it's going to be an anti-inflammatory, again, highly nutrient dense diet of some form. It's going to be balanced without fail. So you're going to have a lot of fiber, a lot of good, healthy, high quality, highly absorbable protein, good, healthy, stable, easily digestible starches, and healthy, nutritious fats. So when you combine in a meal protein, starch, fiber, and fat, you're tremendously decreasing the glycemic load of that meal. So not only are we not using, for instance, processed foods, which obviously everybody knows are very high glycemic, they can raise blood sugar very fast. So not only are we using wholesome, good quality, high nutrient dense foods, but when you combine different foods that have with different macronutrients in them, the proteins, the fats, and the carbs, the whole sum of the meal has a load, and that's called the glycemic load of the meal. So when you combine the proper foods, that glycemic load drops drastically, therefore causing what? Phenomenal, healthy, stable blood sugar response. Okay? So that is the first and most important way to begin to improve insulin resistance, as we talked about, blood sugar dysregulation, right? So, anti-inflammatory, high nutrient dense diet, that is going to be the absolute foundational basis staple. If you don't address that, nothing happens. People always ask, can I take supplements? Can I mix and match? No, you can't. There's not a supplement on the market. There's not a drug on the market or any combination of the above that, is going to, address any issue. Nutrition is the absolute most powerful weapon that we have of choice to any chronic disease, hands down. And I'll argue against that to anybody, anytime and anywhere, okay? You don't address nutrition, nothing happens. I always ask the question, is the 80-20 rule good? No, it's not. Whoever put that rule down, they never done anything 100% themselves, I promise you that. So that is absolutely ridiculous and quite right down stupidity, because you cannot, the more serious the issue is, the more gung-ho you have to be with your nutrition. So 100% or close to it is the name of the game with nutrition. All right. So you guys can see I'm very passionate about that, but that is the brutal reality. Always go back to the episode number 1 that I did. And that is that I'll tell you the truth. I'll tell you my experience, and I'll not compromise on the truth in any way, shape, or form. Do I know everything? No, I never will. But I tell you what I know has worked. And there are many, 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 many successful people that have lived and are still living now that treat chronic conditions, and they can vouch for the same thing. You don't address nutrition, nothing much is going to change. All right. So another aspect that we're going to go, which is kind of rise from the first one, is from the diet and the anti-inflammatory diet, is really using healing foods. So every food or type of food is going to have some kind of chemical composition that is going to differ. All right. For example, let's take protein. Well, you might have 4 ounces of, wild caught Alaskan sockeye salmon, and you might have 4 ounces of truly organic, truly pasture raised, high quality beef or bison. Okay, have 4 ounces, 4 ounces. Generally speaking, they're all going to contain the same amount of protein, around 22, 24 grams, depending on the fat composition, obviously, but you're going to have the same. However, the composition of the salmon, even though it's going to provide you similar calories, pretty much similar to the same amount of protein, the chemical composition of the micronutrients is going to be different than the beef. And so when you're using healing foods, you have to respect the biochemical composition of each food and what it has. Obviously, everybody knows salmon has a very high omega content, has astaxanthin. That's what gives it that reddish orange bright color that is really awesome healthy. Astaxanthin is one of the strongest natural antioxidants, for instance, that people can eat, which has different, grass-fed beef has other phenomenal properties. It also has omegas and other things, but slightly different healing composition parts. We can go different way to organs. Obviously, kidney, heart, liver. All those foods have very, very high nutrient dense aspects to them that can really have very, very helping and healing properties to them. Obviously, we can go to fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and starches. I like to use whoever can in my clients. I love using organic yams and sweet potatoes. And there's at least 10 varieties that I am able to obtain here, in where I live in the Atlanta area. And they have tremendous amount of nutrition at different ones. If you look at the coloring of them, they'll have different antioxidant composition, different polyphenols, and so forth. So incorporating, the healing aspects of foods is very important here. Okay, particularly for PCOS, and that is if you're not sensitive to those foods, because again, you might be sensitive. But things like organic pumpkin seeds, cashew, almonds, bananas, dark leafy greens, dandelion greens is phenomenal. That's a great detoxifier. Has a bitter. It tastes bitter actually when you chew on the dandelion like green leaf that you can get. Is very stimulating to the bile, very cleansing to the liver, and just great for oral digestion. A great source of prebiotic fiber. A lot of people don't eat it because it has a bitter taste to it, but you can put it in your salad, right? It has a tremendous amount of magnesium, all the stuff that I mentioned. Inositol. Inositol is extremely important because that helps with mitigate insulin resistance and response, and also lower blood sugar. So inositol is basically a B vitamin-like compound that does improve insulin signaling, especially in PCOS. The isomer of myo-inositol is the preferred form of inositol for women. You can also take that as a supplement that I use and have. Some people can eat stuff and can obtain the foods. It's a very effectively dosed supplement in that respect. But things like cantaloupe, oats, citrus fruits, nuts, again, organic, highly nutritious, are very, very helpful in those healing foods. Zinc, extremely important, again, from numerous levels, but ultimately, zinc insufficiency plays a massive role in metabolic dysfunction and dysregulation, particularly when it comes to the immune system. So things like, again, grass-fed beef and bison, poultry, oysters, other shellfish, certain nuts like pumpkin seeds, has a lot of zinc in it. So on and on it goes, but I don't want to waste too much time. But remember, foods have healing effect. Okay, foods have healing effect. Cruciferous vegetables, they're phenomenal for estrogen regulation and metabolism and detoxification and clearance. Like people hear the bad estrogens, the good estrogens, they do, and a lot of people, do really well as long as you're not sensitive to those. If you are, then you have to use a supplemental form of that. So just think about the healing effect of food. Always think about that. Now, a lot of people always ask about the ketogenic diet. The ketogenic diet, when it comes to reversal of diabetes, obviously improving insulin sensitivity, addressing insulin resistance, initially does a great job, and it does actually very fast. My experience has been that you can implement it short term. Not everybody does well on it, especially long term. But if it's a pressing issue, the ketogenic diet can be applied immediately for a few weeks at a time. And then depends how the person does, you can switch over to a more balanced diet. But regardless of what, you're still going to have a low glycemic load and low glycemic index food, which in the long run, that's what it matters. But yes, ketogenic diet really can make a big difference. So one of the things also about PCOS is disordered eating behaviors. That is huge. That's very important because a lot of people have eating disorders. And honestly, it just have to be bulimia or anorexia, but it could be just too many calorie counting. Again, over-exercising, overtraining, under-eating. That really stimulates the metabolism in a bad way eventually. So sufficient caloric intake is extremely important. And again, balancing the macronutrients, protein, carbs, and fats. Let's see. So the next one is going to be something that a lot of people freak out about, and that is correcting insufficient carbohydrate intake. And when I say carbohydrate, I'm not talking about fiber. Fiber obviously is very important, but fiber has no caloric value. Okay, it's extremely important for gut health, especially, and many other things, but it does not have caloric intake. So what I'm talking about is healthy carbohydrates, starches. And what I like to call is mild and healthy starches. Most often than not, these are going to include, honestly, elimination of grains and the inclusion of a lot of tubers, things like potatoes, yams, sweet potatoes, yucca, root. They're extremely, extremely beneficial. One, they're very low glycemic. Number two, they have a tremendous amount of prebiotic fiber that is very healthy and very nourishing to your healthy gut bacteria. And a lot of people do really well, especially if people have sensitivity to grains, which a lot of people do. And yes, that includes, unfortunately, oatmeal. Now, oatmeal kind of is in between. So as long as you're getting certified organic, especially like the sprouted oats, and with their, glyphosate tested, basically they're Roundup free and, truly organic, a lot of people do well with them as well. But generally speaking, I like to take grains out temporarily and really focus on those healthy starches and carbohydrates. So eat enough carbohydrates. People are so afraid of carbohydrates, but I cannot tell you how many people have done a great damage to their metabolism, especially their thyroid, when they completely cut out healthy starches. And remember what I said before, foods have chemistry. You're not going to equate, say, 100 grams of starch or carbohydrate from processed, white bread, which is, pretty much worthless, to 100, grams of starch coming from organic Japanese yam or a jewel yam. Completely two different things in the composition behind that. So keep that in mind. And if you're eating good, healthy, truly healthy starches, it's very hard to overeat to begin with. And no, you're not going to gain anything with that, I can guarantee you. If anything, people that overtrain a lot or have a lot of stress, have too many low calories, when you start to actually up their healthy carbohydrate intake throughout the day, especially at night, it's amazing how healing of an effect they have. And you'll be able to recalibrate the metabolism very actually efficiently. So just keep that in mind. I know a lot of you guys are carbophobic, but just keep that in mind. So the other thing I want to talk about is optimizing protein intake. I know there's a big word, and obviously they have a lot of people in the medical community, even, in the vegan and plant-based community that, you can overdo the protein so much, it's being overdone. The reality is actually protein is really not overdone. And believe it or not, a lot of times it's underdone, especially when it comes to women and especially older women. And in general, the older population, people 60s plus and above, they have a harder time getting high quality and enough protein in the diet to begin with. So protein is extremely important on numerous levels, which I'm not going to go into here, but you really need to optimize your protein levels. A general rule of thumb is you want to get to about 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per lean body mass. So say you weigh 220 pounds and your lean body mass is 180 pounds, right? Then you want to meet close to 150, 180 grams protein per day. And that's not as easy to do as people think it is, especially if you weight train, especially if you exercise a lot. So that's very important. Very, very important to be able to meet that protein intake. Another thing that we're going to go into is get off of dairy. Aside from ghee, grass-fed organic ghee or grass-fed organic butter, I'll really get off of dairy because dairy products naturally contain hormone and hormone-like molecules in them, especially insulin-like growth factors called IGF-1. And these IGF-1 signal is very heavily implicated in ovarian, hyper, androgenism, basically causes high androgen response and production. And you can look it up on PubMed and NCBI. It's there. So getting off dairy is a must. Anybody that I work with PCOS, insulin resistance, they're going to have to get off dairy. So notice I just said PCOS and also insulin resistance. So I have somebody, male or female, that doesn't have PCOS, but they do have insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes or they're pre-diabetic. Dairy has to go without fail. Yeah, at least for the time being until everything is normalized or recalibrated and brought back to normal and the person, goes back to normal and optimal health. But dairy has to go. So that is very, very important. The last thing that I want to, really discuss thoroughly is the limiting of toxins from your environment. The biggest source of toxins for most people are going to be water, without fail. That's the water you drink. Most people drink from plastics, so you're going to have plasticides such as BPA, and there's other BPs. BP stands for bisphenol, as a chemistry name. The molecules of different families. You can have bisphenol A, bisphenol B, bisphenol C. Either way, you're gonna have plastic leaching from that water. So you got to stop drinking out of plastic. A lot of the stainless steel products, believe it or not, contrary to popular belief, like the canteens and so forth, they're lined with a very thin form of plastic, so it doesn't erode the steel or whatever it might be. So that's not a good either. So glass is really the only acceptable option. Number two, you really want to get a proper filtration system for your house, and or at least go to the reverse osmosis machines and get that high quality water. Reverse osmosis water is going to be hands down the cleanest and most applicable water that removes pretty much everything, all chemicals, including fluoride, which is extremely damaging. People have those breeder filters or just basic sedimentation filter. They're pretty much worthless. Even if it takes out the odor of chlorine or chloramines that are in the water, there is so many different chemicals that are in there, particularly fluoride, that is extremely damaging to the metabolism, to the thyroid, to the pituitary gland, and so forth. Fluoride is the poison. Okay, fluoride is a poison, and you guys can go to fluorideactionnetwork.com and you can learn all you want. But it's not good. It has to be taken out. So reverse osmosis water is really what you should be eating and drinking and cooking with. Okay. Another massive source of toxicity is our food supply. So if you don't buy organic, by default, you're going to be risking getting a lot of different residues of agriculture, chemicalized agriculture, whether it be herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, hormone residues from antibiotic use, genetically modified crops. And there's a lot of toxicity in there. So you definitely, without fail, want to be able to use organic or truly naturally certified food, whether they be animal products or vegetables, fruits, and so forth. There's EWG, Environmental Working Group. You can go to EWG.com and you can literally see what foods and so forth are, contain what kind of chemicals, what kind of, agricultural chemicals and so forth. There's also a thing called the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen, which you might have heard of. That's also very useful a lot of times if you don't have any access to, organic food. At least you can make better choices. So the third massive exposure, especially for women, is going to be hygiene products. Things like shampoo, conditioners, lotions, soaps, feminine products, like tampons and pads, toilet paper as well. These are very, very heavily laden products with numerous of chemicals that really do cause problems, because anytime it goes in the body, your skin, your eyes, your mouth, it doesn't matter. It is going to get inside and it's going to cause problem. And it's not the one time or two times or one product that you might be using. It's always a cumulative response from over the years using many different things each and every day. Okay, it's all cumulative. So always remember that. That's a big problem. Switch your makeup, switch your deodorant. That's a huge source of toxicity, which obviously a lot of people know that certain chemicals in the deodorants, especially aluminum hydrochloride and so forth, causes problems. It's linked to breast cancer and so forth. So use your mind and really, switch those things up. The Environmental Working Group, again, they have, a lot of different options. They have a ebook called, I believe, Skin Deep, or they have actually a database now. It's called Skin Deep that is for makeup and personal hygiene products and so forth. But you can look it up and you really can start being selective and buying and using non-toxic products. Okay, so toxicity has to be addressed because, again, a lot of those hormones, a lot of those chemicals disrupt hormones. Some are carcinogenic, some are endocrine disruptors, some are both. And you can go to the CDC website, you can go to World Health Organization, National Institute of Health. You can look those chemicals up, it's right on there. They'll tell you what it is. The ones that have been tested, they'll say endocrine disruptors, or they'll say, potential or known human carcinogens and so forth. So just, be smart and, be wise. Here's the bottom line. When it comes to PCOS, like any other chronic disease, it can be reversed, okay? It's a lot easier to prevent, but it can be reversed. But you got to change your ways. You have to change your lifestyle. You have to change your nutrition. You have to change a lot of things. The 80-20 rule, really the 90-10 rule, doesn't work either, okay? And you just have to be disciplined. You have to be diligent. And you have to have a strong will. And people always ask me, what is the formula for success? What's the difference between those people that succeed and those people that don't? And I always tell them the difference is these people are diligent. They have a strong will. They make it happen. They make choices. They set their mind to it and they go after it. Do they do it perfectly? Never. Absolutely not. In 27 years, including myself, I've never seen anybody. I had people that are very high-end CEOs, people that are just shakers and movers, these people that are severe type A personalities, OCD, don't take no for an answer, take no prisoners type deal. Even they can't do it perfect. These are habits that take time to change. These are, the choices that you grew up with and are still living. They've been, heavily ingrained into your psychology. So they take time to change. They take time to, replace. So the formula, if there is such thing as, people that succeed, they never give up. They just keep going. They fall. They get right back up. They fall again. They get right back up and they keep going. And over time, things will change. Over time, your habits will become ingrained, those healthy habits, and you'll be on your way to health. Obviously, some people do not have the luxury to wait long. So yeah, if something that you're dealing with is a severe case, then obviously the more hard work ethic and diligence and discipline is going to be required. But anyway, this is the message for today, polycystic ovarian syndrome. And you guys reach out to me. Again, I'm your host, DrPND, with Your Health Reclaimed. And I cannot wait to see you next time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you for your valuable time and for listening to the Your Health Reclaimed podcast with DrPND. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and share this episode with a person you know it can help. If we can help you in any way, or you would like to connect with Dr. PND, please visit drpnd.com. That's drpnd.com.